We're doing another watercolor activity in our little travel size sketchbook. If you don't have a sketchbook this small, you can do this on a piece of paper. We're actually going to do two different paintings because we're going to do a double page spread. And if you don't have a book and you want to do this on paper, just have two pieces of paper. This is about 5 by 5 if you want to cut paper to that size, or if you have a bigger book, you could just square off sections and get both of them, maybe even on one page, depending on your book. This is going to be another floral, which you're like, you don't like painting flowers. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I do now. I don't know. I don't know what's happening to me because I have been painting a lot of flowers. I think it's just like seasonal. But I painted this in my sketchbook a while ago and you guys saw it and you were like, hey, I want to paint that too, which I appreciate. I appreciate that. So this is going to be, we're going to do some hydrangeas on one side and we're going to do some daisies on the other, and we're going to use the same color palette for both so that they coordinate. You don't need a lot of colors for this, but I'm going to use my 24 color essential palette. We're really going to use like some yellow, some blue, and some green, and that's about it. And then I'm also going to use a white crayon. This is how we're going to do the white of the daisies, but you will see how that goes. We're also going to put some Dr. Martin's bleed proof white on the top of that. So if you have some white gouache or even white watercolor, depending on the brand, might work, maybe. Or you could use a white pen. That would work too. We're also going to use two colored pencils, a blue one and a green one. So you want them to coordinate with the blues and greens in your hydrangeas. So you can decide, like, once you mix your colors, which pencils work for you. And I'm going to use some small brushes on this. I just find that the small brushes are a little easier to control, and I want to make little teeny tiny petals for the hydrangeas. So I have a size 6 and I have a size 2 round brushes. If you don't have brushes that are this small, you can still do this. You'll just want to make sure that you use just the tip of the brush and you don't have too much water in your brush while you're painting. That is it. That is all we need to know about this little painting. So let's get started. I'm not making this a color activity necessarily, but I did pull this card from the color cube as sort of our inspiration palette for this spread. I think, like I said, I think we're only going to use blue, green, and yellow, but I think these go really nicely together. So these are the colors that I'm gonna aim for when I do my mixing. Before we even mix our colors, let's talk about the daisies that we're going to do, because these daisies are white. And we are going to use a white crayon to sort of mask off that area on our paper so that the paint doesn't get on that spot. You will see that it is hard to see the white crayon on the white paper. It's going to be hard to see it in the video, and it's hard to see it in real life. So what I'm going to do, since I want the petals to go around the center of the flower and I don't want to like lose track of where my flowers are, I'm actually going to mix up my yellow color first, and I'm going to put a little bit of that down on the paper just to kind of mark the areas where I want my flowers. Now, when we put paint on top of this, there's a good chance that that yellow might run a little bit into that paint. Even if we let it dry, sometimes you'll get some bleeding of the paint. That's okay. These are going to be really small, really light dots. If that happens, it's totally fine. But if you're worried about that, you could just mark off the centers of the flowers with a colored pencil or even just a regular pencil. Let's start with our yellow, and this yellow is really probably very close to yellow ochre. I've got a test sheet here since we're doing a double page spread. This is my yellow ochre, and that is pretty close. This might have a touch of green in it, but it's close enough for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and sort of map out where I'm gonna want my flowers. And I'm gonna do 5 flowers, and I think only 3 of them are gonna have centers, and the other 2 are gonna be side views. So I'm gonna do one. Well, that one got a little bit bigger than I intended. That's okay. I'm doing one a little higher than the other, and then maybe we'll do another one that's even just a little bit lower than that. So that's it. Those are the centers of our flowers, and I'm gonna soak up just a little bit of this water. So I'm drying off my brush. I can soak up a little bit of that paint and water just so it dries faster, and also because I don't really need this to be super dark right now. I just want to know where my flowers are going to go. So super light on that. Let's go ahead, while this dries, we'll go ahead and we'll mix up our blue and our green too. So for me, I think I'm going to go with Prussian. My Prussian blue has a lot of green in it, and this blue has a lot of green in it. And then let's mix in some lake green. And I think I've made it too green. This is looking not, yeah, that's not the right color. That's not hydrangea colored. So I think actually, let's try adding some ultramarine blue. The ultramarine blue doesn't have as much green in it. It's more of like a primary blue. And let's see. That is closer. It's still not exactly what I'm looking for. I kind of want to mute it down a little bit. So let's try adding just like the very smallest little dot. That was not enough. This is where it gets tricky. A little dot of orange, because orange is the complement to blue. And let's see what this gives us. And it might be, okay, that's closer. That's pretty close. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more blue into it. That was a very noisy car. I don't know if you guys heard that. I'm adding a little bit more blue in here. Okay, this is that sort of dusty blue. That's the blue I'm looking for right there. That dusty blue gray color. So I think our blue is good. And now we want to do this green. And for the green, I'm gonna go olive. I think olive is probably it. It's kind of like with the yellow ochre, where like, I don't know if we really need to mess with it. I think the, yeah, that looks good to me too. Okay, so we have our color palette. So we have yellow ochre, olive green, and then our blue was a mixture of a little bit of ultramarine into our Prussian blue and a little bit of lake green and some orange. You might be able to mix it easier if you just went straight to the ultramarine instead of the Prussian blue. Let's try it. This is an experiment. Let's just try it. If we went ultramarine, a little bit of lake green, and then we just add that little tiny bit of hint of orange. Does that get us? Yeah. Yep. Okay, so basically we had to counteract that first little bit of Prussian blue that we used by adding more orange to it, and adding more ultramarine to it. So what we learned is we should have just gone straight for the ultramarine. Ultramarine, little lake green, and some orange would have gotten us there quicker. These are the things we learn when we mix colors. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy with where we ended up. And actually, I can use either one of these puddles at this point because they're very similar. So now I just have more. Okay, so what do we want to start with? Let's do our petals on our daisies. So we're just going to use the crayon to make petals off of these centers that we've painted in. And it's like I said, you're not going to be able to see it. I'm not going to be able to see it. Nobody can see it. It's a magic trick. It's a watercolor magic trick. Let's see. Can you see? You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it. So you can also see that I'm not drawing like actual petals. I'm just sort of making scribbly marks. So I'm going to do that on all of these. And once you get it in, again, you can kind of hold it at an angle and see if you can see those marks. This one, I'm gonna do longer petals on the back and then just like short petals on the front, so that it's kind of like almost like a side view. Not exactly, like a three-quarter view. Can you see that? The other thing I want to do is right up here and right over here, I am going to make some side view flowers. So that's just like a half flower. And can you see that on the video? You see where they are? Hopefully you will be able to get some kind of idea. You will definitely see it when I put the background down. But that's how we're creating it. Now, if you wanted to, you could use masking fluid, which I have done some videos on masking fluid. Masking fluid makes it a little easier to see what you're masking off. I've also heard that people use like a candle, just a plain old candle to do it. I've never tried that. I just go for the crayon. And I have also heard that Crayola is the best for this, although somebody said that Prang makes a good crayon, which I've never seen Prang crayons, so I don't know about that. But I would recommend going with Crayola. Once you've got your area masked off, we're gonna go ahead and put our background down. And I'm not taping this. See, look at the magic. I'm not taping this off. I'm just gonna do that like kind of squared off shape. I just think it's kind of cute. I think the squared off shape is kind of cute in the sketchbook. And this is a very rough sketch, so I'm not trying to get a really even background. I'm just putting the color down. We could have switched to a bigger brush and made it a little bit easier on ourselves. But this is really meant to be just a quick sketch. And I kind of want this to be not dark, but like somewhat saturated to show off our flowers. While this side dries, and I know it doesn't look like much now, but we're gonna make it cute. We will make it cute. Just stay with me. While it dries, we're gonna go ahead and do the hydrangeas. And I'm gonna use my yellow, and I wanna make like a bucket. You know, like you would find at a flower market. You would find the hydrangeas sort of sitting in a bucket. It might not be yellow, but that's okay. That's what we're doing. We're doing a yellow bucket. And it's really just kind of that trapezoid shape. And mine just got a little bit bigger. That's okay. That's okay. You could draw this out if you wanted to, but I don't think that's really necessary for this. We will fancy up our bucket a little bit once it's dry, but that's, for now, this is fine. I'm gonna switch to my little teeny tiny brush at this point because we are gonna put in the little petals of the hydrangea. So if you think about a hydrangea, it's like the flower is like a big ball, but it's made up of individual flowers that look sort of like an X. Okay? That's a very rough one. But when we're working this small in a sketchbook, it can be that rough. It doesn't have to be, it does not have to be anything precise. I'm just gonna start putting in some of those little X kind of shapes and making rounded off flowers. And some of them are not gonna be like the full X. Some of them will be just a little line or a dash. Some of them are going to run together too and be more solid. But it's that little X shape that I'm making. And then just add in a few little marks here and there to round it out. So that's our little hydrangea. That's our little hydrangea shape. Let's do another one. We'll do another one up here. So again, the little X shapes. And maybe they're not all the full X's. Maybe they're just little dashes. Okay, there's that one. Now let's do one that's like kind of like a side view one. You'll see as I paint this, you will see what I mean. But like you're looking at it from the side, so it's not going to be a full circle. It's going to be just the side of the circle. So there's that one. And let's put one in here in the middle, sort of next to, I think there's going to be 5. I think we're going to have 5 flowers in here. And they're like these two are kind of butting up next to each other. If you think about like when you go to a flower market and they've got them all kind of in their little, that's a big one, all in their little, stuffed in the bucket. Maybe there's going to be more than 5. I don't know. Let's see. Let's do another one down here. This one's kind of running right into that one. Okay, I think we're gonna leave it at that. We could always add another one in if we wanted to, but I think this is good. Maybe I'll just make it hang over a little bit more. That's another big hydrangea flower. My bucket's almost dry, but I want to layer something on top of here, and I don't want to put it on until the bucket's totally dry because I don't want it to run together. So we're going to go back over to this one for a second. So grabbing some of the yellow that we used before, we're going to put those centers back into our flowers. We're going to make them a little bit darker than we did last time. Just adding them back into those three. And then this one's not going to be in any kind of a vessel. It's not going to be in a vase or a bucket or anything. We're just going to do the stems. So just get a little bit of that green on your brush, and let's just make a really skinny little stem for each one of these. This one is going to come back behind this guy. And that one is right there. And I just grabbed a little bit more green because I want to darken these up just a little bit. So I grabbed some green straight from the pan. And I'm just adding that in. Okay, and for the leaves, I'm gonna do little tiny leaves, because that's all daisies have. They just have like little tiny leaves. And we'll put some at different levels on the flower. This guy, I guess I'm gonna connect that. I think I'm gonna, when I use the white, I'm probably gonna cover that up, but that's all right. That is okay. And maybe we'll just do one more right there. Okay, so there's that. So now I'm gonna let those dry before I do the white on top. And I'm gonna come back to this one. I'm gonna go back to that yellow, and I'm gonna just make some lines here. Remember, this was supposed to be kind of like a bucket. I'm just gonna do lines at the top and lines at the bottom. And maybe I'll outline it just a little bit. Just adding just a little bit of interest to our bucket. And now I'm going to go to my green, that same green that I mixed up before, and I'm going to add in the stems on the hydrangeas. So on the hydrangeas, they have a stem that comes down, and then they have little ones that come off that are connecting to all of those individual flowers. So anywhere that there's a white gap, I'm just adding just a hint of green in there. Not very much, just a little bit. And then on this one, maybe this one comes down like that, and there's like little connectors right there, and maybe just a little tiny hint of green in there. Maybe this one's coming like, it's kind of like hanging over. hanging over the edge. Put a little bit of green in some of these, some of those spots. And this one. With the little tiny, tiny touches of green. Like barely, barely there. Now we can do some leaves, and I think I want to switch back to my size 6 brush for this and make them a little bit bigger. So same thing we always do, where we just kind of press and lift. And fitting them in wherever you think. We can kind of make them go over our bucket a little bit, because we can cover that yellow up. That is not a problem. Let's see, where else? Let's do one. We'll do a leaf right there. And then I'm going to turn my book a little bit, and I'm going to do another leaf right there. I'm just going to darken that one, darken these up just a little bit. I want them to be a little bit more saturated. So I just added a little bit of paint to my brush. We need some more leaves. We need one up here. We need one down there. And we'll put some green in here too. Okay, do we think that's enough? Is that enough leaves? This is always the question that I struggle with, is when to stop with the leaves. I kind of want to put another one over here. I feel like this spot looks kind of unbalanced. We're gonna just do it. We'll just do another one right there. That's that. And we have to let these dry before we can do our colored pencil details, but we can put in just a little bit of a shadow. Let's just do that same blue that we did up above. Let's just put in a little shadow down here. Maybe it's a little bit broken, like it's coming through the flowers. All right. There's our little shadow. And on this one, I'm gonna go to my Dr. Martens Bleed Proof White, and I'm gonna dip right into the pot. Now you could make a little puddle of white on your palette if you wanted to, but I just dipped right in. And you're gonna see when you do this, the crayon is gonna continue to sort of wick away some of this gouache, this white, but I think it gives it an interesting effect. I think that adds something to it, because you get to see a little bit of that background through the crayon. So we're just kind of making it a little brighter white by adding this. And you wouldn't even really have to. You could just go with the crayon. I think the crayon is very pretty on its own. And let's Let's do this guy too. So all you have to do is just kind of touch the brush to make these petals, these petally shapes. I think that one is finished, question mark. Maybe the only other thing I might do, I kind of want the centers. This is going off of our color palette a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of orange into that yellow. And I'm just gonna brighten up those centers just a little bit. There's a little bit of gouache left on my brush too, so it's making it a little bit opaque, and actually it's brightened it up even more, and I think it looks pretty. Yeah, I like that. Our daisies are done, and I think that my leaves are still just a little bit wet. Let's let everything dry on the hydrangeas, and then we'll come back and we'll do the final colored pencil detail. Jump scare, it's me again. I thought I was recording and it did not record. Now is time for colored pencils. You're gonna need one that goes with like the blue of your hydrangeas and a green one. Okay, I'm back. Crisis averted. So we're doing those little individual flowers. We're gonna just draw a few of these in on our watercolor. Some of them are gonna be complete, and some of them might just be partial flowers. Like it's just one petal here or there. And we don't have to do every single one. We're just kind of accentuating the watercolor that's already there. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up because we're gonna do the same thing to all of the flowers. We're just adding a little colored pencil on top to give it more detail. Then on the leaves, we're just gonna outline them. Maybe you define the stems of those leaves a little bit better. It's really up to you, like how much you want to put in. You could put in some lines, some line work detail on there. Again, totally optional. And I just do the same thing to all of the leaves. Okay, that's it. Super simple, but very cute. I'm really getting into doing these tiny sketchbook spreads because they come together so fast and they're so cute. I don't know. I hope you guys love it as much as I do.